everybody, Randy Patterson here again with Boomerocity with part two of my interview with Debbie Simmonds and Bob Schaffner. I said all I pretty much needed to say about this chat, so if, in the intro to the first part of this interview. So if you want to catch some of the background on it, just go ahead and go there. The one thing I will say is please order this book. You can do so by going to where this is embedded in the page on the website, boomerocity.com. Just look up this interview, open the page, and there'll be a graphic of this book. You can just click on it, and it'll send you right to where you need to go to order this book. Or you can go to savoybrown.com, and you can order directly from Debbie and the team at Savoy Brown. So without any further ado, here is part two of a two-part interview with Debbie Simmonds and Bob Schaffner. Until next time, this is Randy Patterson with Boomerocity. Take care.
Hello, my friend. Hey, Bob.
Howdy,
Hey, Debbie.
we were just
You got a nice new do.
terribly.
I do.
I noticed that last time you have a new haircut or something. Or you
I
changed your... Well, I'm asking the question, I guess.
I guess you are. I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay.
But look, it looks a little shorter than some of the pictures I've seen of you before, Debbie. I mean,
Well, that's true.
I
Yeah.
noticed that last week, so
Yeah.
or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was we spoke. But anyway, I'm glad you guys could get back together. I felt terrible. I mean, we covered a lot of good ground. It's not that I didn't think we were productive, but there's a whole lot more I wanted to ask, and we just kind of ran with it, you know. So
That's
We
great.
did. We really did.
yeah, it was a lot of fun. That's when I know things are going well, is when we can have a chat like that, and all of a sudden we realize it's time to roll, and we haven't even scratched the surface on that. So
Yeah, that's so true, isn't it?
hey, it's what rock and roll is all about, you know, and this music
It certainly
business
is.
but
By the seat, yeah.
pardon me, what was that?
Flying by the seat of your pants.
That's right. Well, how have you guys had any more interviews or any more feedback on the book before we get back into my questions? What have you guys been hearing?
Since we last spoke, we haven't had any more interviews in that time, and I haven't talked to a lot of people, I'm going to be honest. But I did talk to Garnet, and
Okay, yeah.
yeah, and he was very happy that we had done the interview, and he said, let me know when it's going to be up, because I really would like to listen to it. So, and he said, what a
He's a
great
great guy.
guy you are, Randy.
Oh, well, wow. I'm surprised he even remembered me, but
Oh,
you know, I stay on top of Sean and his work, so they, you know, I'm hoping maybe that's how he remembers me. I don't know. I don't assume I'm remembered. I think it's funny when fans go up to an artist and say, "Remember me? We talked 23 years ago backstage as you were running by." You know, yeah, I remember. You know, so
he was in the red shirt, remember?
that's right. That's right. Tea stain on the front. You know, so. But
Basically.
you know, I think it's interesting that, and I'm one of the reasons I think I might have mentioned this last time we spoke. I love that you guys did this book because I think it will be for the hardcore fans, especially. They're going to probably validate or confirm some suspicions they had about how cool Kim was, and maybe it will open their eyes to even more about that. And earlier this morning, I interviewed Rob Arthur, who done the Peter Frampton documentary that's coming out. He plays in Peter's band and all that. And I think there's so much that we as fans or the casual listener just don't realize about artists. Both, you know, how hard it is for artists to do what they do, and you know the quirks and the, I mean, apart from families and all the other hardships. And
Oh
so
yeah.
that's another reason why I do what I do, to support things like what you guys are doing. Um, so fans can, if they want to make the effort to find out, at least they can. They can at least get the Reader's Digest version through interviews like these, and hopefully
Right.
it'll motivate them
Right.
to pick up the books and add them to their own library. You know,
Right.
so
I agree.
thanks for helping make that happen on my side of the
Aw,
equation. So,
thank
Vice
um,
you.
versa.
so
Yes, yes.
what we may recover some ground that we
Yeah.
talked last week to kind of retrace our steps a little bit. Express again from both of your standpoints what finally convinced Kim that it was time to tell his story in his own words. Did he have a clue that time was limited, or was this just something he just happened to want to do, or what? Give us the backdrop on that.
No, I don't think when he started this, because he started it, I mean, quite a few years ago. I would
Yeah.
say probably 3 or 4 years before he was diagnosed, even. And I think he just thought that he had a pretty cool story to share. And
Mm-hmm.
I do think a lot of people were saying, you should write a book, you should write a book, because I think I mentioned that he would write letters on the website, and people loved to read them, and they loved him as a person because he was so relatable. I think it shows, he would just have conversations with people, and and I would be in the background trying to, kind of keep the line moving. Like, great, super, and he'd be asking questions, and I'd be like, this is fantastic. If you want to step right over here.
Well, I think that's the whole thing with Kim. Unlike a lot of people in music, he was accessible. He
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
was very
Mm-hmm.
accessible to his fans,
Yes.
and unfortunately, I think that's unusual.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And even for my position, just I mean, I'm a fan. I'm not a journalist. I don't consider myself one. Consider myself just a fan who gets to talk to people that I admire and want to help get the word out. But even for me to be, I've got to meet a lot of people backstage and do that. But I
So
have to admit,
cool.
sometimes where you don't get to, and it's almost kind of like, why is that? I'm an okay guy, I thought, that kind of thing. But when I see artists who are, and when I do get to meet them, if there's fans around, I'll make sure that I keep it short on my part, because these fans, that might be the only
Yeah.
artist they ever get to meet. And I
Yes.
want that to be fun for them, because hopefully I'll get to talk to that artist again. I get this kind of time with them that the majority of people don't. So you got to kind of keep it even balanced. But from what you're saying, it seems like Kim was always more than willing to spend quality time that he might not necessarily have had to make that fan's day.
I think so. I think he really appreciated that people would take the time to come to a show and spend their money, and I mean, that was really meaningful. And then if they were in the merch line, they would want a CD signed or a t-shirt, or that they had just bought at the show. And I mean, that's wonderful. I mean, what a testament to him and the band. And I think he really, it meant a lot to him that they were
Mm-hmm.
there.
Did Were there ever any times where maybe he regretted it, where somebody took advantage, or maybe somebody mentally unstable, like a journalist? I'm kidding. But where
Well,
he
there
kind
was
of,
this one time.
yeah, this dude named Randy that had him on Zoom forever. But no, where maybe somebody might have been a little unstable, or somebody was trying to take advantage in a way that was kind of conniving or whatever. Did he ever regret any of that?
No, I would say no. If things got, a little weird, because sometimes they would, and that happens,
Mm-hmm.
either I would step in or Pat would step in, Garnet would, somebody was always there. So as much as he wanted maybe to take time, because not everybody understands that
Right.
they're not the only ones, so it's a fine line to have that experience. But I think he would kind of step back from it a little bit, really, and let someone else intervene, because I think he didn't know kind of what to say,
Yeah.
or he didn't want to be rude and didn't want anybody to think that they were not important, so
Yeah.
yeah. So I think we had such a great team, all of us together. I mean, we were just such a great unit that everybody was always watching, everybody's always watching where everybody is, what they're doing, who needs what. Does
Was
anybody
it
need help?
a well-oiled machine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
really.
you
I
have to
mean, we
be
were
really.
so
You know,
lucky.
it's
So lucky.
Well, after being
I've
on the road for how many years, Debbie? I mean, I think you have it down after after a couple decades.
well, but you can't, as a fan, you can't always assume that that's going to be the case. Again, not naming names.
True.
There's people I've seen several times, and whether or not I go, there've been times I go backstage and times I wouldn't. Every time it's different.
Yes.
Every time, there are times where it's more oiled than others, and
Yes.
where
Yes.
some maybe there was blue smoke blowing out the back, to continue with the analogy. So the
Yes.
fact that you guys did have it down and had it down for as long as you did, speaks volumes. It really does.
Right.
I'm curious what's the story behind the title of the book.
Actually, I think it was Kim's dear friend John Shelmet that came up with it, because I think Kim had thrown out a couple others that I can't bring to mind now. And he and John were talking one day, and John kind of said, "What about Street Corner Talking? I mean, that's a no-brainer, really." And
Mm-hmm.
Kim was like, "Oh, Street Corner Talking, of course." Why didn't I think of that?
It was
So I
also Debbie. Wasn't it also the best-selling album of Kim's?
Well, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I think for John, he was confused why Kim hadn't thought of it, so it was one of those situations. But yeah, I think it was really John that brought it up to him, because I think sometimes when you're in it so much, you can't see,
Yeah.
I think we've all been there.
Oh yeah.
Definitely.
Can't see the forest for the trees type of thing.
Right.
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 Thanks. I
Was
was going to
there?
say that, Randy. Thanks for bringing it up.
I don't want to take all the good lines. I mean, there's enough good ones to go around here. So, what for either of you? I know that Debbie, you said last time that we spoke that the book was pretty much done
Yes.
when Kim passed, and that really you made no changes in the book. Neither of you did, but you have to still prepare the book for publication, and probably going through and reviewing and such. Was there anything, and I'll start with you first, Debbie, that where as you were going back through it again, that hit you in a way that was particularly touching or emotional for you when you saw that and go, wow, I either forgot about it, or yeah, I remember that, man, that touches me. Was there a story or two in there that got you that way?
I hate to keep talking about this, but I think it was his childhood. I mean, it was, growing up in England at that time. I mean, they had bomb drills, and, his father was in the Navy and would come home with these stories, these unbelievable stories, and how he survived was a miracle, truly a miracle. And his brother in Wales worked in the coal mines. His brother was a miner. I mean, imagine that, and I think his parents didn't want that for Kim. They didn't want him because that was the natural thing to do, was to work in the coal mines, and they didn't want that for him. So I don't know. The whole thing really, when I think about it, and there were a couple pictures from his childhood, with his, childhood, his grade school soccer team. And I just, that really touched my heart because I hadn't seen that. I hadn't seen those photos. Someone had sent them to me, which I am forever grateful for. But that was really touching. And I think everything that he went through in his career, it was not easy. It was not easy for him. So I think, working with his brother and excuse me, emigrating to the United States was hard. He left his home, his family, everything he ever knew, and came and moved to Ohio, of all places to move to. But, I mean, and scratched his way back, just really worked hard. And at one point he thought his career was over. He didn't think he would be able to play guitar anymore. It was gone. I mean, imagine that.
Mm.
Something you've done your whole life and worked your whole life for, and it's gone. It's away from him. And it was hard to come back from that, I know. And then, and as we talked before, being on the road is so hard. It's so hard. People don't understand how difficult it is.
Living out of a suitcase.
Yeah, living out of a suitcase, and things on the road are so unpredictable, whether you're flying or driving or, whatever you're doing to get there. And then when you get there, things are unpredictable, and excuse me, it doesn't matter how much you prepare for it, things can go haywire. And it's how you deal with it.
Promoters and all that kind of thing too,
Yes.
Gosh.
Yes.
Sound guys.
Yeah.
My pet peeve.
Yeah.
Talking to Kim over the years, and over the over the phone, interviewing him for my book, and then talking to him at length. I'm just very grateful to be part of it and having helped Debbie get this book published, and Kim Simmonds finally getting more of his dues.
Yeah.
Because he did get cred, but he didn't get enough cred for being one of the premier blues guys in the very beginning of the whole thing. He was there with the, the top three, the Peter Greens, the Jimmy Page, and the Eric Claptons. He was right there, actually on some cases before those guys.
Yeah. It's interesting how that works too, because I mean, blues, when people stick in the blues, and I may have mentioned this before. I was talking to an old blues guy that never made it too terribly big. I think he's been on satellite, Sirius XM a time or two, and he has a low level radio program and that kind of thing. But he's a decent blues artist. But he would look at somebody like, say, a Joe Bonamassa and say, they're not true blues because they're successful. They're making good money. They hadn't had to starve like we do now. And I suppose there's a certain level of truth to it, but I don't think that success necessarily harms your perspective as a blues musician. Do you guys see it differently?
No, and there's some, and I won't mention names, but there are some people or some guitarists that say they're blues guys, and quite frankly, I think they're posers. But going back to the 60s, the 70s, I mean, you think about that. People change, somebody like Neil Young, Every album's different, country, rock, this and that.
Hmm.
And to stay with the blues for, God, what, 50 years?
Yep.
That's,
Yeah,
that's
over 50
that,
years.
that's really um can't think of the word, uh, loving what you do and
Mhm.
being very committed to the genre.
Yeah.
I
I
agree. And I think I don't think it's fair to say, if you haven't scrapped and scraped, then
Yeah, I agree
then
with
you're
that.
yeah, then you're not a
Yeah,
real blues artist. Joe Bonamassa is amazing.
he
I don't
is.
think anybody can take that away from him.
No.
So I think that that's unfair. I understand what he's saying, but I don't think it's accurate. And I don't think
No.
Kim would think that either.
I do think that the blues has had a up and down popularity
Hmm.
over the
absolutely.
decades. As you guys were talking about all this, I just happened to remember my first real exposure to you know adult music after I got away from the kiddie songs of things like Puff the Magic Dragon or whatever was my mom's 45s of Elvis, and it was uh, what was it, Merry Christmas Baby or something, that real bluesy song that
Hmm.
Elvis did, Christmas song. It was blues. I didn't know what it was, but I
Sure.
realized, man, I loved how he sang that, and I was like, and it wasn't until many years later I go, oh, that was the blues. That no wonder I like that kind of stuff, and then
Yeah.
it carried on to other artists. But the blues has always been a constant, a foundational, I think, to other genres that have gone on, and whether it's rock, R&B, I guess to a certain extent even rap and hip hop. But I do
Absolutely.
think that it hasn't always been fully appreciated for what it is and was, except by people like Kim, like Clapton, like
Mhm.
so many others that that to me that's the standard. That's foundational to anything else we've ever enjoyed listening to. And
Well, as we
to the
said
point,
before, Randy, when I interviewed Buddy Guy, he said if it wasn't for people like Kim and the British people, the American blues would have died,
yeah,
which
that
is
brings up a. Go ahead.
quite something if you think. No, I was going to say that's quite something if you think about that. It's an American genre that was made popular by Kim Simmonds and the British guys.
Yeah, yeah. Well, something that just popped in my mind that I never thought of before is we've had the British invasion so many of the people that talk about that, the people that were part of it, they talk about how what turned them on were the blues and people like Elvis and Chuck Berry and that kind of thing. Do you feel that the blues, because of where it's rooted, that it resonated with these artists that survived the war? They're Britain was a bombed out shell for to a great extent, and that in many ways that was the white guy's version of the cotton fields, so to speak, symbolically speaking, that Kim and Eric and the Stones and the Beatles and all that, they globbed onto that because they could identify with it, and that spoke to them at that level. Do you think that there's that correlation, or what else was there about the blues that turned on so many Brits to want to pursue it?
I think that's a great question, don't you, Bob?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's just like saying, why is Kim Simmonds your favorite guitarist? I mean, how do you describe that? I mean, there's so many guitarists. It's what moves you. It's
Right.
what to me a blues guitarist. And I said this to a couple people that I interviewed. If you're playing the blues, your it's got to come from your heart. Um, and instead of just doing the licks that you can copy from other people. Um, And I think that's why the blues has gone up in popularity because it's an emotional music
Yeah.
as opposed to, drum machines and, computers and things like that. It's really, it's raw music at its core.
And
I think it,
I
go ahead.
think you have a valid point about that, Randy. I think that it's very possible that that had something to do with it, of why the blues resonated with all of those guys, that they did live it. We were not subjected to the same things they were, but I mean it was pretty scary, so
Yeah.
maybe that was a comfort to them, I don't yeah, it would be interesting to know what it was.
Yeah, I wonder if
As
anybody even
a-
really thought, if maybe it was just something kind of subconscious that
Yeah, yeah,
moved them
I
and
think
they
I
never
think
really
so.
thought about it.
that's a good point.
If I ever
I,
talk to like an Eric Clapton or any of the Stones, I'm going to ask them that because
Ask them that.
it would it would be very interesting to know. Back to Kim staying a blues man, was that something he consciously did? He goes, "Oh, this other stuff's fine, but I'm just gonna stick to the blues," or and maybe even put another way, was he ever tempted to add in any other slightly different genres of music just because he liked it and he thought, no, I really need to stay, I need to maintain being a blues purist on there. Was that all conscious on his part, or was that just something he just gravitated towards?
No, it was very conscious on his part. There was a very short time when he first moved back well, when he moved to the States and he was, trying to make his way and he had, people helping him and stuff. And they had what I call a hair band. The hair was
Yep, yep.
crazy. Jimmy Coons was in the band and, some other guys. But it was very short lived. I think he quickly was like, this is not who I am. What am I
Mm-hmm.
doing? I'm compromising for someone else, who
Yeah.
thinks that this is the way for me to go. So that was, I want to say probably a matter of months or something, But no, when he would write songs or at sound check, sometimes they would play songs that they had been playing with in the studio. The guys would come and rehearse at our studio, and I'd say, "Oh my gosh, I love that. You should really do that." And he'd be like, "No, no, it's too rock and roll. It's too rock and roll. That's it's not the blues." So, he was very steadfast in his beliefs and, what he was going to do and what he was not going to do, or if songs made it onto the album, he'd pick songs for an album and then he'd, re-listen and somebody would say, this is really great. And he'd say, no, it's gotta go. Doesn't fit, that's not the right tone or whatever it was, not bluesy enough. It's not a blues song.
Also has to be said though, on a couple of his solo albums though, it's kind of jazzy stuff. I mean, isn't one called?
We love the jazz and the jazz is very connected to the blues, I think.
Mhm.
I mean, I think it's very much not the same music, but that same feeling, I think, that artists have and connect to. I think it's in the same vein, so to speak. So yeah, yeah, his one solo was jazzing on the blues. So
Yeah.
yeah,
There
yeah,
you go.
he
Title
loved
says it
jazz too.
all.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, but he
Maybe it was
was,
the improvisation of it all, that, or
Right.
the
yeah, it's true.
ability, the
Yeah,
freedom to do that,
yeah.
that that he glommed onto. Was there a favorite era of Savoy Brown creatively that Kim would have called his favorite, or did he always just prefer focusing on what was ahead rather than
Yeah.
looking backward?
Yeah, he definitely was a look ahead person. He didn't look back. He didn't hold grudges. He really was very much in the moment and what are we going to do moving forward, and I think that's why there were so many albums too. You're always looking forward. Let's record another album. Let's let and he had all of these songs in his head all the time, and I think that was, he wanted to get them out and down and moving on, so, but I think, the early years were particularly great. Well, great and bad, if you read the book, they were kind of both, Um, I think he was the most settled in the years that Pat and Garnet were in the band, for sure. He
And
was
they were the longest standing rhythm section with Kim, right?
Yes.
Which says a lot right there.
Yes.
True.
Yeah. And they were just such great guys that, it all just worked and they all could depend on each other, which is so important in a band. It's a family, it's like a family. So I think he was the most settled. Yeah, settled and, calm. And I don't think anybody ever thought about leaving. Why would they leave? They worked so well together.
Do you think that because of Pat and Garnet staying with him, that in Kim's mind is saying, all right, I don't have to worry about these guys leaving. I can now focus more on some other aspect, songwriting, producing, whatever. Do you feel that them sticking around for as long as they did freed him up in that way, or was he always kind of always thinking, are these guys going to leave today? That type of thing.
I think when you've had as much personnel going through your band as he had, I think that probably is always in the back of your mind. I don't think it was ever at the front of his mind. But I think, you can't help but wonder, because he did have that happen. He had people in the band that he was sure were happy and they were doing well, and all of a sudden they were gone, and there were a couple that, broke his heart. Yeah. But you pick yourself up and you keep moving on. But I think there was a sense of security with Pat and Gar, and they were local, and it just worked so well for everybody. We didn't have to fly anybody in for rehearsals and, and worry about where they're going to stay and, how are we going to do this? And, it was a very comfortable situation. So again, we were very fortunate, very lucky.
Bob, was there a particular era that was a favorite of yours as a Savoy Brown fan? As far as, we hear so many people talk about, Deep Purple 3 or Deep Purple 4 or, which iteration
one of the loudest
of Journey
bands I ever saw live.
Dude, what was that? What did you say?
I said Deep Purple was one of the bands that I saw live. It was one of the loudest bands I've ever heard.
Yeah. I've not seen them.
Yeah, Fleetwood Mac in the early 70s, they used to back up Deep Purple. So I used to watch Fleetwood Mac and then listen to a song of Deep Purple and leave.
So in other words, you left after 45 minutes then, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I'd say, it's really hard to pick, but I'd say album-wise, Looking In and Backwards.
Gotcha.
Would be my druthers. With Roger Earl, with Dave Walker, those days with Lonesome Dave. Those, not to be cliche, but those are just simply classic blues albums, without a doubt. And people need to rediscover. Chris Yolden. I think one of the best blues singers that there ever was, in my humble opinion. Um, so those albums are just, you know, if you're in the blues, you got to own some of those albums. I mean, like Blues Matter. If you're a blues, there's a blues guitarist that I won't mention that I did a gig with, and he's like, blues, I've never heard that album. It's like, you're doing the blues for like 35 years. How can you not have that album? It's like, shame on you. Yeah, you call yourself a blues man? Come on. That's standard consumption.
Yep. Should be part of the every meal practically.
Right.
We've all talked about Kim's place in the British blues scene. I'm curious from both of your perspectives, how did Kim view the Savoy Brown's place in the British blues movement, or did he think about it? Did he just say, "I'm a blues band. I don't care where I fit in. This is what I'm doing"? What's your insight into that?
He knew that he was a major contributor to the whole movement. I mean, I think he was aware of that. I think he knew what a great player he was. I don't think he ever said, oh, I'm not that good. He worked very hard at being a guitar player his whole life, forever. And I think he knew and he was aware that he did not get the recognition
Right.
that he deserved. He was aware, but you can't live in that,
Right.
and the truth is, and I just mentioned this to somebody the other day, and it had never, not that it hadn't occurred to me, but I don't think I ever said it out loud before, but I don't think he wanted the success. He didn't want to be on the road for months at a time. He didn't want to be playing night after night after night. He had done that. He had done all that. And so for people who say, why wasn't he more successful, or why wasn't he more recognized? I think I'm not sure he wanted that,
Hmm. He had his
which won't make sense
priorities
to a
in
lot of people.
balance.
And yeah, and sometimes it didn't make sense to me either, because I was like, let's go. And but I really don't think that's what he was about.
What are your views on that, Bob?
I agree with Debbie, but I have a little different take, and she'll probably get mad at me. But that's okay. It wouldn't be the first time. Um, in talking to Kim, and interviewing him, I think I agree with Debbie. I think, with that kind of notoriety comes a lot of angst.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's something that most people would really want. Um, but I also think that Kim thought that he should have gotten a little more recognition in the blues community than he did.
Yeah.
That's my opinion in talking to him, the times that I've done for hours at a time. Um, and I agree with that because it's a head scratcher to me because, he would be in the, certainly the top five blues guitarists from the 60s onwards. And,
Yeah.
a lot of those guitarists went on to do different things.
Did he ever talk about the philosophy behind his playing style? Did he ever like kind of get into the weeds about it? And I'm not a musician. I'm not sure I'd follow everything, but I do play a mean air guitar, and I defy anybody to deny that. But but did he ever get into his philosophy behind his style?
His philosophy was to keep it simple, to keep it pure. He didn't want all the bells and whistles. Did I talk about guitars last time? I can't
I
remember.
don't think
No,
so. No.
But he was not
no.
a guitar collector. He really was not. I mean, I know I've told Bob this. We would be getting to the end of the year, and I'd say, we have a little extra money. Why don't you buy a new guitar? Let's, have fun, go out and go crazy. And he'd be like, no, I don't need one. I don't need a guitar. And, and not that he didn't have a collection, he did, but he was very strategic. As a matter of fact, I was talking not too long ago to a good friend in Rochester who worked at a music store, and he said to me, Deb, he said, Kim would come in and he'd have a guitar with him and he'd say, I'll trade this one in because I want to buy something else. And Andy would say to him, well, Kim, I mean, you don't want to get rid of this guitar, I mean, keep the guitar. I'm going to give you a great deal on the new one. And he was like, no, no, I don't need it. No, you take it, do what you want with it, sell it. So
Wow.
he was very much, he wasn't about pedals and,
He was a
effects.
purist.
And
Yep.
he really was. He was a purist. And I think that was really his philosophy, that you don't need an expensive guitar. You don't need all these, special effects and pedals and sounds. And, you don't need all that stuff. You need to be a good player. And he was a
That's
good
right.
player.
Well,
So yeah.
the guitar story though begs the question: did he ever trade one in and then go, "Oh crap"?
Yes. Yes.
I think every guitarist I've ever talked to tell the
I
story
think
about
so
a
too.
'59 Les Paul that they should not have gotten rid of. You know.
But you know
Yes.
what? When people bought guitars, in the 60s or, even the 70s, you didn't buy it because you think, oh, I can buy a Porsche after I sell this guitar.
No,
Hmm.
You bought it
never.
because you wanted the instrument. It's just like when, everybody puts onus on a certain guitar and certain players. But, a guitarist like Kim Simmonds or Peter Green or Paul Kossoff, I mean, if they played a different guitar than their main guitar, they still sounded like themselves.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, witness that I think we talked about it before that, Kim bought a guitar at Walmart. Big deal. He bought a guitar at Walmart, but he toured with it.
He
That
did. I
take,
don't think we told that story, Bob.
I'm sorry. Well, go ahead, tell the story, Debbie.
Do,
He
do
can
you
edit
want to hear
this.
the Walmart guitar story?
Yeah. No, we didn't talk. I want to hear it. Let's go.
So we were at Walmart one day and, doing whatever. He had gone his way and I went my way, and we came back together and he said, they've got a guitar over there. And I said, okay. And he said, I'm thinking about buying it. It was $99. I'm thinking about buying it. And I said, why? What are you doing? Why are you buying a Walmart guitar? Really? And he said, yeah. He said, why not? It's $100. I mean, it'll be fun. And I'm, yes, sure. You should buy the Walmart guitar. Absolutely. So the next thing I know, we're on the road and the guys are playing, they're playing a song. And then between the songs, Kim would talk, he would tell a story or something. And while he's doing that, he's, just fooling around on the guitar, just playing a little bit. And then he'd talk a little bit and he'd play a little bit. And so, mind you, he had the same guitar on for several songs. So he would say, he would tell the in Walmart. And my wife said to me, what are you doing? Why are you buying a Walmart guitar? And everybody went, yeah. Why would you buy a Walmart guitar? And he would go on to tell the whole story. And then he would say, and this is the Walmart guitar. And then he would just rip, but he had been playing it prior to that, which, I mean, people were like blown away. The place would just go crazy, because he was playing this $100 Walmart guitar. And here, they had no idea that's, he might as well have had, a kid's plastic, little Roy Rogers guitar or something. But I mean, people would just go crazy because they just could not believe that he had been playing this Walmart guitar.
And I have to say, I mean, for a professional guitarist to do that as a lark is one thing. But to go up on stage, play several songs, and then tell the story and say, "Hey, by the way, this is the guitar," that takes a lot of guts. I mean, it really does. I mean, because who knows, that the truss rod is bent or it's hard to tune, or I mean, it's a $99 guitar.
Something's
And
bound
I
to
don't think
happen.
anybody, Debbie, and I wasn't there, but did anybody go, "Yeah, he doesn't sound the same"? I doubt it.
What he I mean, they were all, they'd come up to me afterwards and say, are you kidding me? Is that really the Walmart guitar? Yes, it's really the Walmart guitar. You could
Wow.
probably go to Walmart right now and buy it. Will it sound the same? Probably not.
Right. And that's the
That
thing.
blows.
You're talking about purist. I mean, Kim would use maybe a wah-wah pedal.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Kind of like somebody who's number one guitarist in everybody's book, Mr. Hendrix. I mean, he used a wah-wah pedal plugged in. He had a crybaby. I mean, that's true of Peter Green. He used reverb and a wah-wah pedal. That's it. Now, can press a button, a bass player can sound like Jaco Pastorius
Yeah.
or whoever.
Right. Right.
Um, and to plug in, especially in the 80s and 90s and beyond, not to use a pedal board for a guitarist, it's crazy. There's one thing that I have to say when I was interviewing Kim that blew me away because we were talking about, this is several years ago, obviously. It's like, Kim, who are your favorite living guitarists? And he said, I don't have any of his albums and I really don't like his style, but Jeff Beck. I'm like, what did you just say? He basically, he's the best guitarist, but, I don't own anything that he has and I don't like really his style of playing, but he's absolutely the best living guitarist. That
Wow.
just blew me away how honest he was about that.
I mean, I have to say, I won't go as far as naming names here, but there are people that I like, and I'll see polls or surveys or something. They say absolute best rock guitarist is blah blah. And honestly, I mean, I'd probably be beat up for saying this, but yeah, I like them. I like them a lot. I got their music, but when I listen to them play, especially live, they're sloppy. And I'm not even a musician. If I can pick that up,
Right.
I mean, but yet, everybody bows at this person's feet, and okay, fine, but I think there are technically a lot other better players than Kim being one of them than this person uh, that everybody would know and agree that you know they're a great guitarist, but they're by no means the best.
The best.
And
Well, to,
there I
to
said
say
it.
somebody's the best is, what genre you're talking. It's like, when you buy a TV, it's like, oh, here's the 110-inch TV. It's the best TV. Oh, it's for my bathroom. All of a sudden, that's not the best TV for you.
That's
And it's
right.
like, and that's the same with a guitarist. I mean, I can appreciate somebody like Alan Holdsworth, who
Hmm.
would Eddie Van Halen would ask me at a Hamer Jam once, do they still make 16 RPM records? Because I want to slow him down so I know what he's doing. I can appreciate that, but is that my heart of hearts? No.
No, yeah, agreed. Was there was there a particular chapter or sorry? We talked about the emotional side of things, and Debbie, you mentioned his childhood and all that. Was there a particular chapter for both of you or story in the book that surprised even you two, and you know, both knew him better than I did, the that surprised you once you saw it in the book, and it was getting ready to go to the publishers? Was there something you just go, wow? And Debbie, I mean, you were with him for a long time, but not his
Yeah,
entire career. So, was there
right.
was there anything like that where you go, wow, that's I didn't realize that, or I that's something I didn't really catch.
I
Maybe you
think
didn't catch it
I
as
think
he
we're going
was
to say the
writing it.
same thing, Debbie.
What is it, Bob?
His childhood, the beginning
Yeah,
of
I
that
mean,
that
I knew a lot, I wasn't, I can't say that I was surprised by anything. I think, it was very emotional for me, the going through the book, because, you have to go through it and then go back again and go back again, and and it was very emotional. It's still very emotional for me, after this time, but yeah, I don't know. I was so proud of him, I think. I was so not surprised, but just proud of him for opening himself up the way he did, and telling the stories that he had, I mean, not all of it was pretty and glamorous, you know. Um I think he did, which didn't surprise me, but he did hold back about some people in the book that he could have been not as
named.
gracious as he was, shall we say. Um, but that was him. That, I'm we're different. I can't keep my mouth shut, if I have something to say. If somebody's picking on my
I
husband or
can attest
something,
to that.
yeah. Don't go after my husband. Don't go after my kid.
There you go. Yep.
Go
Yep.
after me, but don't go after them. But he was not like that. He didn't feel the need to, I don't want to say not be honest, but to maybe tell all the dirty details of everything,
And
you know.
I think that that's a great point, Debbie, because I think that too, because knowing some of the angst and some of the bands that he headed, he could have done exactly what you're talking about, which makes it, which just makes you love the guy even more because he could have, and a lot of people do tell
Yes.
all books sort of stuff, and he could have in several instances, and he didn't. And that
No.
just tells you more about the person that Kim Simmonds was.
I
Yeah.
think I want to say something that some of my church going friends are going to hate me for. Um, but I grew up in church. I consider myself a believer, um, and a devout one in my own weird way. But I have to say that all these stories and what I've read in the book, for him to have that much grace about himself, and that comfort in not lashing out, I think a lot of my professing Christian friends, myself included, could learn a lot from that.
Mm.
It's because we don't necessarily practice that, and it's there for us to. I mean, we're taught we should, but you know, even through some carefully worded things where we can have maybe plausible deniability, people know what we're saying, and Kim didn't do that. I mean,
Right.
that's a testament to his character, I think.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, exactly.
so I'm sure I'll hear about that comment from some, but that's okay.
Hey,
So
they can't take a joke. What the heck?
nah, they rarely take mine, so I'm used to it. So what a lot of rockers, a lot of musicians love to share the crazy stories from the road. Did Kim enjoy reliving those, or was he more interested in just talking about the music itself?
Few stories, about things that had happened or things that he had witnessed being on the road. Of course,
Yeah.
people, stopping off stage or, you know, departing the gig altogether and, just crazy things and things that would happen, on the way to gigs or, but he loved talking about the music. It was his life. It really was his life. He loved the nobody was interested enough or wanted to talk about it. He was happy to do that. He was very happy to do that.
I Something I remember from the interview I did with him, the last interview I did, which fortunately was on Zoom. I remember once I went back and looked at it, thinking to myself after that interview, and even during it, there's a way he would smile as he was talking with things about things, and I could relate to it because when I do stuff like this, I have people come up to me and say, "Hey, that's pretty cool. You know these people. You get to do this." And the way I feel about it is, "Hey, I'm just a fan who, I get an autograph in the form of an interview, and then I get to share it with everybody. This is like, hey, look at this cool person, not look at me with this cool person." And of course, I have to promote the brand and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's all about who I'm talking to, not about me talking to that person. And so there's a sense of awe and wonder I feel about that work. And when I hung up from that call with Kim, at least from my perspective, I just sensed here was something that was like, yeah, I get to do all this stuff. And it was almost childlike in a way of how it came across, at least to me. Is that, I mean, I know I don't expect you to know that particular interview, but in general, does that kind of capture how he was about this at times?
Oh, I really do. I think, you know, trust me, it wasn't all, hearts and roses all the time.
Right, right.
Everybody's, still human and he would blow up sometimes. But the thing about him was that if he did blow up, it was done.
Yeah.
Once he, had the not confrontation, but the explosion, so to speak, he was done with it. And I always admired him for that because I can't do that. I fester it, I think about it and what I should have said and what
Hold
did
it,
they
Deb.
really mean?
Hold it, Debbie. You're not. Be careful. You're going to make me believe you're like a typical redhead. Come on.
Whoa.
I don't believe that for a minute. So.
I can attest to it. It's true.
My mother said she didn't get that red hair for nothing. But yeah, I think he did. He knew how fortunate he was to be able to do what he did. And it was hard. It was, I mean, I keep saying that and I shouldn't, but it's not an easy life and it's not for everybody.
No.
I think musicians in general and and the ones that I've spoken to and just had conversation with is it's not for everybody. The music life is not for wussies.
It's tough.
The music business is not for wussies. it's
Right.
it's tough. But yeah, I think he was very aware that he was so lucky, so lucky to be doing what he was doing. And he used to say, I'm not digging ditches,
Yeah. Yeah.
Not
you
working
know?
in a coal mine.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Right.
Bob, in
So,
your interviews from him, how did you feel once you walked away from an interview or two with him? I mean, did you get the same kind of vibe, or what was?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Um, a very, very humble man, but just like Debbie alluded to too, he was a band leader, so he knew what he wanted in a band,
Mm-hmm.
and he was the boss. But he also took input. A lot of people that I've met in bands is like, no, do it this way.
Right.
I've known a couple of producers, and when they go in the studio, they don't tell the musicians what to do. Here's the song, interpret it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I think when I came away from talking with Kim several times, which I still have the tapes, um, I thought this guy didn't get his just rewards
Yeah.
personally. And that's why I'm happy Tony finally got to Debbie and Debbie got to me. And we all of us, John included, Tony, so many other people made this happen because, and I'll say this to embarrass Debbie, checking Amazon this morning, it's still in the top 50 R&B books in Amazon, which is thousands of books, which is just it's really heartwarming for me because, I think I did a good deed for a really good person.
Good deal. Good deal. What for the long time Savoy Brown fan? What do you think will be the most rewarding aspect of reading Kim's autobiography to them?
Good question.
His life, don't you think, Bob?
Yeah, I think, because there's really nothing about Savoy Brown and in books. I mean, there might be discographies and things like that. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think this brings a fan or a would-be fan closer to the person and why he did what he did. And the fact, the thing that struck me having talked to rock stars is that he doesn't drop names. And if he drops, if he says, I saw Eric Clapton, that's what he said.
Yeah.
Period. He didn't say, oh, he had this guitar and this, nothing like that. And that's refreshing. There's very few books in music that I've read, autobiography wise, that do that. They always drop names and they always, um, talk about them being kind of the center of attention. I don't think Kim's book does that at all. It
Yeah.
just it just talks about the person, his life in music, and it gives even if you're not a Savoy Brown fan, if you're just a music fan, a guitar fan, it gives you a lot of insight into a musician's life.
Yeah.
I agree.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think that they will know him as a person more and not just, you know,
A guitarist.
yeah, guitar player. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Somebody on the stage, that's just an enigma, which so many people are. And I think they get a peek into his life and
You
what
just
a
brought up
regular
something though,
guy,
Debbie. Exactly.
right, Bob?
Reading the book, you find like, oh, this is a regular Joe.
Yeah.
This is a guy
Yeah.
that, it could meet at a bar or a restaurant and just, have a great conversation with.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, from my perspective, and I can count the musicians that I've met, many, many film stars and musicians, and very few of them, very few of them are of that caliber or of that demeanor
Yeah.
that
I
aren't
mean,
that
we
aren't
we
full of themselves.
yeah. Yeah, he really wasn't, I mean, we live in a very small town in the country, and he was very happy here.
And he never went to country music. Go figure.
What?
Never.
Well, you lived in the country, so
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm in the deep south. I have to enjoy some. I actually enjoy some country music, but
well, so
Me
do I.
too. Me
yeah,
too.
it's but but there's experiences there too. I don't get to talk to as many country artists as I would like, but I have a deep I mean, grew up on Elvis, so I had to have both rock and country and blues. So,
Right.
but what do you hope with this book out there now, and more people reading it and hearing interviews like this, ultimately, what do you hope his enduring legacy will be after this gets out there and there's people get to kind of drink it in?
I hope that they will listen to the music. It will inspire them to, dust off the old records and put them on the turntable again and listen to the cassette tapes and the CDs. I really I think it will. I think it does spur from the feedback that I've received from people who have read the book, and I think that they will enjoy it so much, and they will feel more of a connection with him
And
and
a
go
more
back and
connect
be.
and more connection with the recordings.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
yes, and
And hopefully, I'll say it from a salesperson, and hopefully people will push record companies to release those old catalogs
yeah,
because
yeah,
a lot
Especially
of the
on
things are
vinyl.
out of print.
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Debbie, well, both of you actually, I think, can answer this question, and this will be probably the final one I ask here. What if Kim could sit down beside us today or pop on the screen, besides freaking us all out, but let's say we were expecting it, and hear us discussing this book and his life's work and the things that were said, and hearing fans discussing it since he's been gone, what do you think he would say about all this?
I think he would be very. Um, I think he would say, "Really? You think so? Was he like it? Really?" I mean, that's just who he was.
Mm-hmm.
He was always not surprised, but thankful.
Yeah,
You know,
That's what I would say if he was here with it.
yeah,
He'd be very thankful that this has come to fruition
yes,
and that are people, and more importantly, people are buying it and enjoying it. We already have 45-star reviews on Amazon. And that's not the only place people buy, they buy the book through Savoy Brown website, through Barnes and Noble, Walmart, wherever. And that there's 40 reviews inside of basically 3 months of it being out is just, I think he would be, like Debbie said, really?
yeah, yeah. I do. I think he would. He would sit and he would cock his head and say, "Oh, I thank you so much." I hoped you would like it or something like
Yeah,
that.
right, right.
Yeah, I think he would be. It's very bittersweet because I know how happy he would be that it's been published and it's been so well received. I mean, he would just be over the moon, you know,
I just
And
thought of a
he
question.
is.
Yeah,
and he is.
I I just thought of a question that I didn't write down, but I kind of hit it from a different angle with Graham Nash a couple weeks ago, and it has to do. And you've touched on you both have touched on it about former bandmates and such. And I know that he was very graceful about those departures and such. But was there anyone, and you may not feel at you know at liberty to discuss this, but let me take it another way. You can tell I didn't write it down because I'm fumbling here. Did I know with Graham? He said, "Yeah, we Crosby and I started. I'm summarizing, of course, but he let it be known that they were on the road to reconciliation." And as a fan, I see a bunch of these groups out there who have, they can't stand each other, and it's affecting business transactions from past publishing and selling this and that and the other. There's a lot of ill will, and I'm thinking, folks, at our ages, we need to let's get past that. let's mend those fences. Let's, I don't know you can ever totally restore a friendship or a relationship if after a lot of vitriol there. But I do feel like it's important, especially at our age, to reconcile as best we can. Some people you can't do that with because
Right.
of, I mean, there's people in my life I wish there could be a reconciliation, but it's looking highly unlikely for a
Yes.
variety of reasons. So I know that you can't always reconcile. But
Right.
did Kim feel? I guess my question would be: did he feel good about how he left everybody once he was gone, as from relationships, as far as reconciliation, making sure they were gone on good terms with everybody? Or was it just a deal that once there was that, there was a parting of ways, as you said before, Debbie, he just, he wished people well and didn't hold any animosity and didn't feel like there needed to be any sort of reconciliation? Uh-oh.
Lost audio.
Yeah, we
Well,
can't
yeah,
hear you,
it's
Debbie.
Oh,
There
there
you
we
go.
go.
There you go.
out. Can
Start
you hear me?
over. Yeah.
The only person that comes to mind really is Dave Walker when he left the last time. And it was very sudden and unexpected, and, you know, and so that was pretty hard. That was a hard time, but that was, it was such a long time ago. I
Uh-huh.
mean, we're talking 1990, maybe
Mhm.
1991. But he did see Dave after that, and they did make amends for sure, and I think maybe Dave was worried that Kim had held on to it, but he hadn't. He really hadn't. And so maybe it was a relief for Dave to know, but I don't I don't really think there was anybody in particular that he had a problem with, that he felt that he needed to do that. I don't that I can think of. Um he really didn't harbor that, and if people had those feelings for him, I don't think he was really aware,
Mhm.
Hmm.
Good.
or me,
Mhm.
or I don't know if there are any people out there that are like, curse you, Kim Simmonds. I don't know.
Well, a
you
lot
know,
of times I think when you're talking to Randy about angst in a band, that can make for some really good music.
well,
True.
that's true.
True.
That's true. Kim used to say that Harry would start a fight with Harry, his brother, would start a fight with him before a show, because he knew that Kim would go out and take it out on the guitar. And he
True.
did.
Well, there's
Yep.
part of the. I mean, that's an ingredient in the blues, right? Whether conflict of some sort that fuels that,
Right.
and can be part of the creative process. I just think it's very important, like I said before, that there are people, there are even family members that we're not speaking, or there's antagonism there, that type of thing.
Yeah.
I if I knew how to remedy it, I would, but I standing back, being in the cheap seats, so to speak, symbolically speaking, and looking at my favorite bands and saying, you guys, you're not going to live for it. You could drop dead right now, and how would you feel about that
Right.
person?
Right.
And I asked Graham, I said, what would you say to those other artists, that are infighting? And, he essentially just said, get it together, man, and, he wishes that it had gone farther, than it, the reconciliation had gone farther than it did with
Yeah.
David, but he was glad that it was on, you know,
It,
well on the
yeah. It
way
was
to
at
go.
least on its way. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
there's
That's
a lot
true.
that can be said for that. And
Yes.
Absolutely.
I know I know us fans, we love to see it when the guys are having fun. How many times have we said it about people? And I'm sure it was like this for Kim. It looked like they were having fun on the stage. To
Oh
me,
yeah.
those are the best concerts because if
Yep.
they're having fun sober, if they're having fun and they're sloppy, that's a different story. But if they're up there and
Right.
everything's firing on all cylinders and you can just see it in their faces and their actions and mannerisms. We as fans enjoy that, and it adds so much more to a show, in my opinion.
And and Randy, you can
Agree.
tell when a band's having fun on stage and enjoying themselves as opposed to just going through the ropes.
Yeah, 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 exactly.
Right.
And fans
I
know that.
agree.
Fans know that. But well, gang, I'm glad we got to do this again, and
Thank you.
I feel like I kept us more on track. Last time, man, I was just enjoying it, and I was going off, and I was not paying attention to my notes, and it was good stuff. But there was more things I wanted to ask. So thank you for taking the time to let
Oh,
me ask those questions, and I think you guys will be. You'll like how it comes out.
yeah.
Like I said, I was saying before, I probably will do this in 2 parts so that it will. I find that first of all, I find that like reading, people don't sit for long periods of time. So I
True.
create shorts
Right.
to add to the traffic, and I try to disseminate it, different platforms and such. So there'll be, opportunities everywhere for people to listen or watch what we have to talk about. And
Wonderful.
so there'll be
Thank
at
you.
least 2 parts, unless I find a reason to do it differently. That's my intent. And of course, feel free to share it. And
Oh,
if you see
absolutely.
if you see
Thank
something
you.
that I should change, if I can change it, I will. I can't always change things once it's out there. It
Yeah.
depends on what it is you need me to change. But I
Okay.
don't think there's anything said or done that we need to clip out. I think
I don't think
we
so.
were all nice people. So,
Well,
but
get to know us better.
yeah, that's right. That's right. People don't always know how to take me or when to take me serious. If you guys see my stuff on Facebook, I'll just throw stuff out there just to see if people will believe it or not. It's just you can tell I'm bored when I do that kind of stuff. So
Well, I do have your email, Randy. So, like you asked me before, I'll make sure to send you an email when we're done here.
definitely, definitely, we'll get something set up on that. And in the meantime, if you guys ever in the future have anything else going on that that's a project of yours that you'd like for me to help get the word out, let's put one of these together and we'll chat
You,
about it,
darling.
and I'll do my part. So,
Thank you so much.
Thank
That's
you
awesome.
so much. Yes,
and
it's
let's stay in
wonderful.
touch. I feel like I got a couple of very good friends now, so
I
I want
know
to.
I feel the same way. I feel like we're all old friends and just chatting.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. That's the
I
way.
agree.
If I can leave it that way, then I feel like I've been successful. So
That's a
we
win.
we will be
Yes.
true friends. So
Yes.
Thank
Yes.
you,
you guys
Randy.
have
Thank you,
you guys have a
darling.
great rest of the day. Bob, you and I will be talking again very soon, and stay in touch.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank
Randy.
you.
Bye bye.
Thank you.